So,
Sure.
I'm going to put the first question in answered. So, Dr. Rob, the first question is: my family of origin, as well as my husband's, are very dysfunctional. My husband is an SA. Our adult daughter is very nervous, anxious, overeats, and overspends. She also has major mood swings. What can we do as a family? I'm the only one working on me. She knows her dad is an SA.
Um, the first thing comes to mind is, having a psychiatric or psychological evaluation for your daughter. I think it's easy to say in the world that we live in, especially Tammy and I, well, there's an addiction in the family. So, probably this is what our kid has or is struggling with. Addiction is a mental health. I mean, that's what it is, a mental health issue. So, I wouldn't necessarily tie all this together. I would make sure to, and your daughter, needs to be evaluated and supported regardless of what else is going on in the family. Yes, our families of origin are dysfunctional, or we wouldn't be here. And the mood swings, the nervousness, the eat overspends. I mean, there are a number of major mental health disorders, including bipolar and anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, that can really cause problems. So bottom line is, I'm glad you're working on you. I'm glad you're setting boundaries. But mental health is different. Sometimes in mental health, we have to give a little more. We have to bend a little more. We have to do things that we might not do in addiction recovery, which addiction is kind of like, you work on yourself and I'll support you, but you got to go out there and do the work. Some people with mental health challenges simply aren't able to do that. So that's the big one. And I would focus on that first because I would worry and be concerned. She could disappear. She could run off somewhere. So I'm very concerned for your daughter that the dysfunction will get worked out over time. You're a strong person from what I can read. Tammy, do you have feedback?
Well, yeah, and I was like, let's go with it is addiction that she has. Guess what? She does not have to continue the cycle just because other people, like it doesn't have to be, oh, my dad has addiction and therefore I will. No, getting the help that we need, we can interrupt that cycle. So,
Hmm.
yes, and I I think I think again, I'm playing out that she does have addiction. I'm not saying she does, but if she does, every addict has some anxiety and nervousness and all of those other things, and we don't like that, and therefore we go do our acting out behaviors, whatever it is. And food is a really big deal. We have lots of guys that come to our residential treatment program who, in addition to the sexual acting out, struggle with food issues as well. So
Exercise, compulsive
yeah, well,
exercise. Hmm.
exercise, but overeating, or I mean, even
Hmm.
binge purge. I mean, it's like any form of compulsive behavior, and they all serve a purpose in our maladaptive coping mechanism. So, I what I appreciate is your daughter, like your husband, is looking for ways to calm herself down. And I agree with Dr. Rob, getting her professional help to identify what it is so that she can have the right treatment, the right intervention. And I don't mean like the intervention TV program, I mean the right treatment and
The right
protocol to
path.
help. Yes, thank
Right.
you, that's a better way of putting it. So but I do appreciate that you're modeling, this is what I need to do for you, for myself. And I mentioned just a little bit ago the Empowered Women's Retreat. Like, one of the best things I think people can do is go, look, I'm going to go take care of me, because I have to. I was talking to someone who actually does one of our drop-in groups. We're going to talk about that next, but and there's some life events going on in his life, and he wants to help people and all this. And I was like, you got to put your oxygen mask on first, and so I honor that you're here, taking care of you. I hope you're doing our drop-in groups and other things that will help you regardless of what's going on with everybody else. Because if you fall apart, guess what? You got to take care of you. So
And I do want to drop one more thing in there. As a trained mental health professional, when I'm seeing any kind of addict or someone with similar issues, the first thing we are taught to do is send them for health evaluation or mental health, so we know what we're dealing with. And we don't just say, oh, that person she might have some physical disorder that we don't know and her brain isn't working right. So anyway, I think there's more information is needed. Go on, Tammy.
So the next one, it's a comment, but I read it before you joined and I wanted to tag on with this. So they said, I really like this drop in. Thanks for recommending it. This is a webinar. For those of you that are here, you're joining the live Q&A webinar, which we offer every Monday night with Dr. Rob and our clinical director, Aaron Snow, alternating on the Mondays. That said, we recommend all the time drop-in groups. They are not recorded, so you can't go find a recording. They are hosted by a person to hold a safe space. There's separate ones for partners. We have female partners. We have a separate one for male partners. We have a separate one for female addicts. We've got separate ones for male addicts. We've got the cruise control on Thursday nights for gay men, and we've got lots of different resources. We even have them for professionals, like people who are mental health professionals who are betrayed partners. There's a separate group for that. So we have all of these drop-in groups. They are not recorded. You must attend live at the time they are offered, but they are done via Zoom. They are, to the best of our ability, a safe place where you can get support and people that are ahead of you on the path that can go, yeah, me too, and here's a lifeline, and come along with us. So I really encourage you, if you haven't tried a drop-in group yet, please do. They're on our website, and you can always email me if you have questions. You're muted.
Go to seekingintegrity.com and scroll down the bottom half of the page. And by the way, 90% of what we do is free. It's what we believe in, and it's what we offer. So let's keep moving, Tam. We got a lot of questions.
Yes. So the next one is, does someone need to be in solid recovery for Dr. Eddie's
why don't you answer that
group?
one?
Yeah, they're listed on the work group page. So on Seeking Integrity, you'll see a tab, work groups, and they're listed in order. So like Sex Addiction 101, Porn Addiction 101, and then Out of the Doghouse. Lots of guys go, oh, I need to build the relationship with my spouse. And we're like, yeah, but you haven't stopped the acting out yet. So start with Sex Addiction 101 or Porn Addiction 101. Now we get some guys that are going like, I've been on this journey and I'm doing pretty good. Then yeah, healthy sexuality and intimacy, attachment wounds, the inner child, why men struggle to love. All of those are really good and interactive. So you can do attachment wounds, and then you can do the inner child. You can do all of those, but that work can be triggering. So that's a longer explanation, but that can be triggering. So if you don't have a solid foundation on recovery, my concern is that you will just go act out. So you do want to have the stability in recovery before you start digging into some of those, things that could be, they kind of poke, like, oh, there's that. Oh, there's that inner child, so hopefully that's helpful, but you can always reach out and ask, specifically about your situation. But, if you've got a solid foundation, meaning, you've stopped the acting out and, you've got some traction, then it's great, because that's the next step into the deeper dive of of the journey. So okay.
And I wrote you a little note, Tammy. I don't think
I saw it. Okay. So the next one, Dr. Rob, is, just this past week, my addict spouse started accusing me of doing and being somewhere I was not. He told me to stop lying and telling the truth. I listened to my gut and looked at his phone. Sure enough, I found on his YouTube homepage feed multiple videos of bikini videos and videos of prostitutes in other countries. The most disturbing were of teen girls. D-Day was 6 years ago. At this time, he was texting my cousin's wife and 13-year-old daughter as well. He had taken her and her younger sister to get ice cream and had taken pictures of them while they were there. And they were on his phone. Please help.
Well, I don't, there's a lot of things here, a lot. And I do say that the best defense is a good offense. And it shoves, some spouses really get shoved back with, what are you doing? And I noticed this on your phone. And, I think that one of the important things in relationships when you're talking about something difficult is to keep it on the topic, to not throw in the past to someone's, well, you did this. So, A couple of things. The YouTube homepages, the bikini videos, the prostitutes. This is serious in terms of sex addiction. This is acting out. This is not being sober. This is. I don't need to see what his sobriety is for a spouse to be doing all this. And also, it's sad to me that you had to run into and find for yourself all of this. Now, about the teen girls, I mean, there's two pieces to this, and I want to be really succinct. I have nieces. I take them to get ice cream. Take a lot of pictures of them. They're on my phone. That's true. So I don't know whether they're close-up pictures of their butts or their breasts or, what is he really taking pictures of? I don't know what that is, but the teen girls piece is illegal. And let me tell you, Tammy and I have worked with people who come to Seeking Integrity for treatment. In fact, they're told to. And this is what they did. They looked at a bunch of pictures of 17-year-olds or 15-year-olds or younger. And the FBI is watching. A lot of those sites are created by the FBI to see who is visiting here regularly. And I'll tell you what happens because we know this. A van will show up your house and they will say to your spouse, I want to see every piece of electronics you have, and they will take it. They will interview him in the van with the door closed. They will interview you in the van with the door closed. And then they're going to say, well, we're going to decide what to do later and we'll see you. And then people spend months waiting to see what's going to happen. It's terrifying. That's usually when they come to treatment. And trust me, there's always a reckoning. They will come back in 3 months or a year or longer and say, now you're in serious trouble. So I'm more concerned than simply, and by the way, then you become a registered sex offender and all of that. So, and if he has any kind of license or anything like that, you can kiss that goodbye, doctor, lawyer, any of that. So the sex addiction piece, yeah, horrible stories we struggle with every day, effed up, but addicts do what they do and they need healing. But the other piece is not sex addiction. It is something different. People don't come to us and say, I look at 12-year-olds all the time and I really need to heal from that because that must be sex addiction. I know most sex addicts don't look at 12-year-olds. We don't offend. And that is offending behavior. And offending means non-consensual. So when you are looking at photos of young girls who don't have the ability, what are they doing there and who's taking care of them? And, how could anyone get consent for illegal behavior? So I am very, very concerned about that piece more than anything. And I certainly, just to say this quickly, I would not let my grandchildren, I would not let my cousins, I would not let any females who are under the age of 18 or 16 run around with my spouse unless there was someone else present. If he was going out for ice cream with these kids, you need to go out for ice cream with these kids. He needs a tracker on his phone or some kind of filter. So anyway, I can't say how serious this is to you, to your family, to your reputation, to your home, and to the possibility of arrest. So, Tammy?
There's more. So scroll down because I found another
Oh,
piece of it. He says he didn't look up those videos, so he doesn't know how they got on his YouTube feed. So what is he supposed to do about it? I, I don't ever have those kind of videos on my YouTube feed.
right,
Do you? Do you?
right.
I don't
I
think
usually
that
have music I
happens.
listen to
Yeah,
and somebody talking about the car that I like and how to
yeah.
fix it. That's what I find on
Yeah,
YouTube.
yeah. So, but what I really appreciate is, because you said he told you to stop lying and tell the truth, and you listened to your gut. So thank you for honoring your gut, and paying attention, like trusting yourself and knowing something is not right about this. So yes, he's in danger, and I will go back to the healthy boundaries for you. What do you need to do for your safety? And that includes financial. Dr. Rob was just talking about like the stuff that happens, and it happens. This is not like, oh, it could happen and it might, but it's a, pie in the sky. No, this is like, this happens all the time. So making sure that you're taking care of you, and your niece and things too, or I guess
Yeah, I want to
cousin's
say
daughter,
something
but
about that. If
please.
if the two of you came into my office and I heard that this was going on, I'd have to report this to Department of Children's Services because for all of us licensed people, we have a very simple one particular ethical responsibility, and I'll quote it. If we believe that a child may be coming to harm. We don't have to know it. If we feel that it might be true and that it's, in any way. So just want you to know, if you guys were going to therapy around this, the therapists have to report this to children's services because these children are at risk. So again, I would not let this person run or be alone with any family member or loved one who's a teenager, period. We
Or
should keep moving. We
any
have so many.
teenager. Yeah. Not even just
Yes.
family. It's like, yeah. Okay. So what are some key areas that are suggested for a sex addict to update their partner on regarding the recovery work they are doing to aid in safety and trust building for the partner, along with the partner watching for outward changes and improvements? And says thank you to us.
Tammy, I think that's a great question for you to start with.
Yeah, well, I I love Thanos. If you are not familiar with the Thanos check-in, I think that that's a good check-in for both of you. But if you don't have kids around, like having your recovery work schedule, shall we say, like I'm going to this 12 step, I'm going to do, this online work group with Seeking Integrity, I'm going to this drop-in group, I'm going to meet with my sponsor, like having that schedule or having it on your phone and your calendars are connected so that there's those tangible things, so it isn't just like I'm being a good person and look at all this work I'm doing, but it's like if a partner wants to see that, I know right where you are. It's 10 o'clock in the morning, and that's where you are for that particular group or whatever you're doing. So I think those outward actions are a lot, but I think it's also, here's what I really think: ask your partner what would be most helpful for you to know about my recovery journey. Like, what would help you know what I'm doing without you breaking anybody's confidentiality, talking about anything that goes on, with other people in the groups and things like that. But what is it that would be useful for you? Here's a trick. I ask partners, like when I do support sessions, and I say, he's going to 12 step. Okay. How often is he working with a sponsor? What step is he on? And I don't know. And I thought, wow, to me, that would be important information to know, that there's some progress being made. I would be curious about that if I was a partner. So I think that's a place to start, is to be transparent about, what your schedule is, for your daily reprieve of, these addictive behaviors. But also, I think it would be great to say, here's what I'm thinking. Would this be useful for you? Or is there something else I could do that would be helpful for you? You're muted.
I have a new dog, and so sometimes I'll get up and check on her and see what she's doing. And she comes up to me and pushes me with her nose because she wants something to eat. And so, excuse me if I look down, it's my beautiful, beautiful adopted puppy. Um, the one thing I wanted to say about this is you shouldn't have to, in my opinion, look for signs of recovery or what this person is doing. If I was in a relationship with Tammy, I would say, Tammy, this is what I did today, or let me tell you what's going on in recovery, or let me tell, I don't think I really don't think good recovery is about me having to come to you and say, what are you doing? What's going on? I should volunteer that to you. Even if I have a bad week and I say, you know what, I only went to one meeting a week and saw my therapist and I don't feel good about that. I should tell you that. You don't need now. If I look at someone on the street or I run through or drive through the wrong neighborhood, that's something to talk to my sponsor about. That's not necessarily something I'm going to bring to you. But the daily, in other words, if there's acting out or serious behavior, I do need to bring it to you. My day-to-day struggles, are not, I saw a movie and I got a little triggered. That's for other folks because you would never calm down if you heard every single little piece. However, my opinion, you should not have to wait around for him to tell you things. You should be hearing them. And I'd say, I'd appreciate hearing and I would feel safer if you would tell me these things. Um, that's what I would do. We
I
should keep moving,
appreciate,
Tammy.
yeah, but I appreciate that because I answered that thinking it was the essay was asking it. And then I see now that it was the partner asking. I think it's the partner asking it. So I was like, so hopeful that the essay was actually asking, what can I do? So anyway, okay. Hello, what type
Oh,
of
right.
questions?
Sorry, it doesn't matter whether and let me
Right.
say, it doesn't matter who it is. It's the answer's the same.
Yes. What type of questions should one ask when first going to a therapist for sex addiction to get a good overview of what the process is and best way to start getting active help?
Well, the first thing is, what therapist are you seeing? And there are therapists who are trained in this work. And Tammy, to be honest, after many, many years, we're not going to say how many, we both know a lot of therapists. And many times people will write to Tammy and say, who is the best person? Or I'm seeing this person. Do you think it's a good idea? So first of all, you say going to see a therapist. Who are they? What is their training? What do they know about any of these issues? Because many therapists don't know anything about addiction, no less this. A therapist who knows what they're doing should be able to give you an overview. First, we do this, and then we talk about that, and here's what you need. And, there is a process. If I encourage you to take the Betrayed Partners group, go through that work group and listen to what other women are dealing with around what they're looking for and what the process is for them. Again, these groups are free, and those are for you to connect and talk to each other and figure out who can support you and all of that. So I could give you many different answers, but that because there are many different answers, I just want to make sure you have the right professional. And I'm going to ask you to write Tammy, Tami, at seekingintegrity.com. And Tammy, God bless her, I don't know how she does it, but she will always answer and give you the direction that you need.
Tell me where you're located too. That helps. Yeah, and but I do think it is important. Um, I, I had somebody the other day that said that they said that a certified sex addiction therapist, doesn't believe in disclosure, and I mean, so it's some good things to ask are like, what is your treatment planning for, sex addiction look like? And, I had another person that reached out and they said, this person just wanted me to do workbooks. And I was like, that person even said, I need to not just do a workbook, and they handed him another workbook. And so he asked for other options, and so I think it's important to, ask some questions. I think it's important to respect your therapist. I don't know that you have to really like them. If you really, really like them, they may not be, um, firm enough with you. There
Respect
may not
them.
be. Yes, I think so. Yeah, it's really, do you respect them and do you believe that they can help you, get from where you are to where you want to go? I think it's important to kind of know what you want too. It's like just stopping the problematic behavior is just abstinence. So, if you're looking for somebody to just help you get there, that's good. And then, then it may be you need something else, and that's okay too. This doesn't have to be a lifelong commitment, but how can the person get you from where you are now to this treatment goal, but have an idea of like, okay, this is what's really going on and I need the most help with. That can be useful for you too. Okay, the next one is a two-parter. Wife of an SA here. I realize there is no magic number, but how long have you seen it take for feelings of shame, anxiety to subside in an SA once he is working on sobriety? My husband has been sober for 9 months after a 3-year affair and using sexting, dating apps for years. Also, he is an alcoholic and sober now for just 2 months. I know it's very early, but in the last 2 months, he is doing all the right things. He is in your SA 101 class, drop-in groups, reads Out of the Doghouse, and numerous books on healing the inner child, listening to hours of YouTube videos every day, looking for a therapist and 12 step. He stopped overeating and lost 20 pounds already and started exercising regularly. Our relationship has done a 180, and I'm so pleased with such a good start. He is like a new man, and we have regular intimate talks and a much better sex life. He owns his past mistakes and is genuinely remorseful, consistently accountable, pathetic, and the man I want him to be. It's like a fog has lifted since he stopped drinking, and he sees clearly now his actions, and he is so ashamed of what he has done. He feels a lot of anxiety and shame now. It's like the alcohol was a crutch for anxiety, and now that's gone. What can he do about it? How can I help? Thank you for all you do.
Well, there's a couple of things. I want to stick with it's very early. And I thought that that was very telling. And it doesn't, I think Tammy would say a year is very early. 18 months is very early. And maybe mostly about the alcohol. That's my biggest. The changes you're seeing, in my mind, have a lot to do with alcohol. The losing weight, the being more connected, the getting in touch with anxiety, the being more present and kind. I don't, it seems to me my experience with sex addiction is a longer term issue because you can kind of stop drinking or not, but I wouldn't want to stop having sex. So how is that integrated in a healthy way? And that brings me to my second comment, which is I like all of this stuff and it's really good. But the part about where is it? We're having regular intimate talks and a much better sex life. I don't, I mean, I'm glad for that. There's something about I can't, I don't want to comment, Tammy, but there's something about this that I have never seen anyone do this well after such a short period of time. Now, there is a pink cloud that we go into the beginning, and it's like everything's solved, and I feel so much better, and I've learned everything, and then at some point the reality hits them, and they're struggling. But these are two very major things that he has picked up, and so I would love to tell you to lean into trust, but I can also see a lot of things to me that could be manipulation, that could be taking advantage of your hope, and I hear a lot of hope in here. Um, he may have, so I don't, and by the way, I hear from a lot of spouses a lot. Well, he or she has stopped acting out, but they're still difficult people. And so the idea that this person is, anyway, I feel great for you. I feel excited for you. I just feel a little leery. And I have to say, what are you, Tammy's going, what are you doing for you? You know, it's what I hear is a lot of looking at him and thank goodness, and maybe he is doing great and it's not right for me to question. I apologize. I always with addicts have this little thing in my head. But are you going to support groups? Are you going to the Betrayed Partners work group where you can really learn about boundaries and reflection about your own feelings and how to manage healthy sexuality? You know, who said it was okay to have sex? Did his sponsor say that? Did he talk to his therapist about it? Was it just, oh, great? And I've also seen spouses mistake sexuality for intimacy. And the closer I get to them, the more intimate I feel. There's also something at the end, which is anxiety. Um, we we sometimes look at drinking and drug use as being a replacement for what might be to fix an anxiety problem or other issues. Now it's been 2 months, and every addict is going to be anxious and worried and fearful and feel everything they never felt before. But and the shame, you know, he earned it. He can feel crappy about this for a long time. Shame is different than I'm really I feel terrible about I did this. I know I've hurt you. I know I've helped the family. This is a really big struggle. That's not shame. That's guilt. Shame is a selfish act, which is I hate myself. I'm angry at myself. How could I do these things how could I do these things to the people I love? And so what you feel is shame maybe something that's just more focused on him than it is on you. I want to see someone I love who's hurt me feel bad about it, but it would be much more important to me for them to understand what I've been through. But I'm going to say number one, and Tammy, maybe you can give some recommendations for where I don't see anything in here about let me tell you what I'm doing for me.
Yeah, I was actually thinking the same thing because it was like, what can I do to help him? And I'm like,
Right.
like, and I appreciate that he's going to 12 step. That's good. And the more, and like, and here's the trick, the AA, there's a ton of great recovery in many AA. It's a little more challenging for the S groups, but I hope he's going to both. And I hope he's, I mean, it's been 2 months. I hope he's doing the 90 meetings in 90 days, around the alcohol too. It's like, yeah, like and yes, I agree with Dr. Rob, the pink cloud of like, oh, and I feel better, look, I've lost 20 pounds and now I'm extra, like I feel better, look, I'm this. And you even said he's done a 180, he's like a new guy. And what I hear is a lot of external, he's lost 20 pounds, he's feeling better and all of that. So unless and until we address those underlying issues, which you talked about, he's used that as a maladaptive coping mechanism, of course, including the overeating. So he's on a journey, and yeah, he's got a ways to go. I mean, because you're giving him credit for 9 months, and I'm giving him credit for 2 months.
Two.
Because he was still using alcohol, and so he stopped the food and the alcohol about 2 months ago. So good,
And
as long as
all
he's
the
not
things
switching
that
to something
yours,
else.
oh, I'm sorry, Tammy.
No, go ahead.
All the things you're seeing are weight loss, being more anxious, more thoughtful, in a different kind of relationship with you. That is all signs of alcohol recovery. All of them. I mean, who wouldn't lose 20 pounds when and start walking when all they've been doing is sitting in a chair and drinking, which has a lot of calories, by the way. So I hear a lot of, oh, this is good, and oh, this is good, and oh, this is good. And I would rather you take care of you and look at what's right for you than check the boxes for what makes you feel good about him. By the way, we're a little manipulative, so we know what you want and we know how to make you feel better. Lord knows you've been asking us forever. And it's very easy for us to become that person without actually being that person. Oh,
Yeah.
one more thing, and Tammy will know this, and we should move on. Um, I feel much more comfortable with an addict who says, this is a struggle. This is going to be hard. I really have to watch up myself every day. I feel much more comfortable with that person than the one who says, I got it, because nobody's got it. If people really get the issues, they know that it's a struggle for them every day. Did you
But
want to add?
and she's not saying he's saying that. So I'm not even going to that. And I hear a lot of good stuff. He's doing the SA 101, work group, good, drop-in groups, good, 12 step, good. Like he's doing a lot of right pieces and just understand it's going to take time. Like just reading out of the Doghouse book, it's Dr. Rob's most popular book. And just reading it is not the same as doing the work group where you're integrated with other people who are saying something and you go, oh, I hadn't thought of that. It's like the SA 101 class. Reading the book or doing the class, very different experience. You get so much more out of it, in that community. But I don't hear, oh, and I'm doing the betrayed partner group. I'm doing the drop-in groups. I'm coming to the Empowered Women's Retreat this weekend. Like
Mhm.
I don't hear what you're doing for you, and healthy boundaries for you. I mean, I wouldn't take the boundaries off. He's got a long ways to show you that he's really able to change. I think he's doing good. Don't get me wrong. There's lots of hope. Okay, Dr. Rob, my husband is SA. How
Wait, I'm
common?
sorry. I don't want to skip the one before. I wanted to say something, if you don't mind, about that little comment about do you
Yeah,
have.
I typed in an answer.
Right, but I also want to add, so the question is, do we have an Empowering Men retreat? And I have to tell you that because the spouses don't get enough support in the process of healing, we really wanted you to have the bonding experience and the growth that comes in the women's retreat first. However, my number one priority with the work that we're doing is to stabilize and keep stabilized and support our residential program. But beyond that, I'm very committed to a men's program. And I think that I don't think it's that far off, and I'm very, very aware of what your needs are. We've just been so darn busy, but believe me, as Tammy said, it is on our list. So,
Yes, we
yes.
I have one male betrayed partner that has asked about that, and I said if I get about 10 more, we could make it a reality. So we'll
And
see.
I will
So
go to them. I don't go to the women's. I do stuff online so you can answer questions, but I will be at the men's retreat for some period of time if and when we have it. Thanks,
So the next
Tammy. Just wanted.
question is, my husband is an SA. How common is it for an SA to have an enmeshed relationship with their mothers? My husband's mother still treats him like a child and has to be fully involved in our marriage and will protect my husband and cover up his lies for him. Gosh, how common is this? This is like a very
Oh,
common thing we hear. So,
well, it's even more than that, Tammy. If I have 8 people in treatment, by the way, we only take 8. So
mhm.
we're not like one of those big programs. And I think the women's retreat only takes 6 or 8 as well. But to your question, um, I've been in this field for 30 years. I've done this work for 30 years. Trust me, personally and professionally. 90%, 85% of the men who come to treat us were enmeshed in a parental relationship. Wasn't always mom, could have been dad, but their existence depended on what they could do for that parent or that love. And I don't blame the parents. They may have been emotionally vulnerable or broken. They needed someone to come along and support them. My mother was very ill, and I was the one who made her feel good about herself. I was the son that this is my son and look how well he's doing. And but it wasn't about her pride for me. It was about her feeling better about herself by showing me off. And that's a very different experience. So I'm saying this to say, how common is it? Almost every man who comes into treatment has this issue, almost every single one in various forms. Certainly, they have other kinds of abuse, but when you really get underneath, this lack of self And this need to have others constantly approving of me really comes from that particular wound. And Tammy, I know there are workshops for this. We have friends who've written about this, and there's a fair amount of support for that, which we can give you. In fact, I have a podcast, and it is called Sex, Love, and Addiction. Please go listen to it. It really is, not just because I'm promoting it, but because it is very powerful for people. But I've done at least one podcast. Is it Tammy with Dr. Ken Adams? There might be
Dr.
two.
Ken Adams. Well, you did another one for adult children of sex addicts with
Right.
him, but there is one from
Mother Messer.
it's probably one of the top. This goes to tell you how popular it is. It's one of the most listened to podcasts. And there's been like 1.3 million downloads, and that one, last I checked, I haven't checked in a while, but that one had the most
Tammy, you
listens.
froze, or
I
I
think
did.
I think you froze because I think you've been freezing
Okay,
a bit.
I'm
So
going to leave and come back. Oh, there you are.
no,
You
yeah,
came
no,
back to life.
you keep coming back, and I can still hear you. So it's all good. But here's one of the things. Like I caught this, Dr. Rob. My husband's mother still treats him like a child, and has to be fully involved in our marriage. And my thought was, about your boundaries. Like this is your marriage, not your mother-in-law's marriage. And so, what boundaries are you putting up for your safety? Which could include, physical safety, around her being involved, in the relationship, etc. So I'm wondering about that. If there's, if there's some safety work you can do for yourself, for your physical safety, financial safety, emotional safety, spiritual safety, that will be a boundary for you. And whether your husband and mother-in-law are able to step into that space would be up to them. I'll tell you what, if your husband really gets into recovery, those things you cannot stay that tangled up, and be on a recovery path. It's very complicated. So
And I just want to add that this does come up in treatment in some of the addicts' adult life. And I do agree that the hardest thing, I've had spouses say, for 12 Thanksgivings, I've never been with my family. We've always gone to his family. And I do say to the spouses, at some point, you need to find a way to get your needs met by setting a boundary and saying, I'm going to stay home alone, or I'm going to go see my family, or the kids and I are going to Disneyland. But it's this enmeshment. Your husband is still playing out with you, which is, you got to be with me. I can't have you go on my own. You have to, it's important for you to set a boundary and say, you know what? I love your mom. I love your family, but I'm going to do something else for the holidays. I'm going to do something else on the evenings. I'm going to have a life of my own. Otherwise you end up, and by the way, there's books and I could give speeches and lectures about this issue because it's so endemic to being a sex addict.
probably other forms of addiction too, but obviously we work with sex addicts. So okay, Dr. Rob, the next one. I'm a betrayed partner, and I'm struggling not to take his behaviors personally. He blamed me for his addiction many times and criticized every detail of my appearance, body, sexual behavior, etc., which has been really damaging. Oh, we lost Dr. Rob. He'll be back. I think his internet was having a little bit of a struggle, so he'll pop back in momentarily. He also told me how much more attractive acting out partners' materials were. Logically, I know these are excuses for his behavior, but emotionally, I think I internalized it and started to believe it was my fault. How do I heal this? Oh my gosh, like this is so common, and I'm so sorry, but and they don't always, I mean, like that was really blatant. For the can you see the question? You're back. You're
I wanted
muted.
to go out just because I didn't want to
I
miss
know you were
anything.
having an issue, so yeah.
So all my questions are gone, so you'll have to read it to me.
Okay,
I went
so I'm
out
going to
for a
read
moment.
it again. And this, like I said, this is
Thank you.
unfortunately common. So, a betrayed partner struggling not to take the behaviors personally. He blamed me for his addiction many times and criticized every detail of my appearance, body, sexual behavior, etc., which has been really damaging. He also told me how much more attractive acting out partners' materials were. Logically, I know these are excuses for his behavior, but emotionally, I think I internalized it and started to believe it was my fault. How do I heal this?
Um, Boy, that's a mouthful in terms of how to heal it. I will tell you what's being done to you. I want you to think about being smacked across the face whenever he's upset. I want you to think about a black eye. I want you to think about bruises because that's what's happening to you emotionally. You are literally being beaten up. And one of the things about abusive relationships is over and over again, the spouse believes that they are not worthy, that maybe this is happening because of something they did or they're not doing. And the addict or the abuser reinforces that. Well, if you weren't this and you weren't that, smack, 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 I wouldn't have to hit you. I wouldn't have to act out. So I think you're being used as a justification. You're being used in multiple ways. You're being pushed back and saying, look at you and I can do it. Entitlement, considering who I'm with, you, I should get to do what I want. That's what's going on in his head because after all, you're this, 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 and this. The second piece of it is that, I'm sorry, it's easier for him to be sexual with others when he says he's unhappy in his relationship. Oh, the abuse cycle. This is a classic cycle of abuse. And I just want to wrap my arms around you and tell you that, you're being profoundly abused and it is damaging your sense of self and your self-esteem. And again, I want to say to you, it's not about anything he does or doesn't do. I really think it's about what support you are getting. Go to one of the free Betrayed Partners groups. There will be women there who will stand up for you, who will give you their email address, who will be there for you. I think this is a pattern that is very destructive. And it's not about the sex addiction. It's about being hit emotionally over and over and over again, and it being justified. And maybe sometimes a little honeymoon, like we're going to be okay, whatever. And then it goes right back into that. So I'm not saying it's unusual for the addicts to do this, but the degree to which, by the way, I think that you're incredibly strong and incredibly brave, and you must have a lot of love in your heart. And I do, as a married person, completely believe in for better or worse, but there's nothing for better or worse that says you have to be abused. And I missed the part in this response where you said, "And I know I'm being abused, and I don't know how to protect myself." And that's the part that I am most concerned about. And boy, do I wish, by the way, that this was someone who came into residential treatment because at Seeking Integrity, one of the things we do is we ask the spouses to write a letter because we do invite you into treatment. You have your own therapist, you're having online sessions, all of that. We don't keep spouses out. We know how that feels to you. But one of the things we ask you to do as spouses is to write a letter about what your experience has been and what you've gone through. And it's amazing. The men that I work with say, I didn't realize, but my God, I held her down. My God, I shoved her out of her room. My God, I called her this or that when they become conscious and I am in their face and we are reading those letters, they somehow begin to understand the depth of what's happened. And I'll tell you, I say to the guys all the time, I bet you've heard some of these things before from your spouse, that their complaints, their concerns. Why weren't you listening? Is my comment to that. But I am just heartbroken to hear this, Tammy, and I know you are too.
I am, yeah, because I mean, it is, yeah, and I agree with everything that Dr. Rob just said about, the whys and all that, but but I hurt for you because nothing you did or didn't do caused this. And while you say, I know this, but I haven't been able to internalize this, and that's because you've heard this damaging message over and over and over and over again. And I mean, there, I tagged the Empowered Women's Retreat, but journaling, working with a qualified professional, like I mean, it's traumatizing, quite frankly. So it's just going to take time and support and healing and grief. I can only imagine the grief at what he's taken, what his behaviors have taken from you, like the self-confidence in your body, any self-confidence in your appearance. One of the things we hear all the time is when the guys are asked, is your spouse, is your affair partner or your acting out partner, prettier than your wife? No. Funnier than your wife? No. Smarter than your wife? No. No, 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 no. And just like Dr. Rob said, the compartmentalization of, like, if I had to pay attention to all of those things, then I wouldn't be able to do the acting out behavior. So it is absolute justification, but it's at a huge cost to you. But you can reclaim, I mean, it's going to take time and it's going to take intention, to reclaim you, and be empowered again. So
I would ask you one more thing, which is if someone you really love, your
mm.
daughter, one of your friends that I have friends for 40 years, what if they were saying this to you? What would you think? How would you advise them? What kinds of things would you say to them and think about if you could think about someone you love telling you this? And I think somehow that can often, it's hard to have empathy for ourselves, especially if we're beaten down, but thinking about how it might affect someone else, it gives us a clearer thought sometimes. But again, my heart breaks for you.
Yeah. And that's a good suggestion too, because friends would never say something like that to a friend. And here's this
Right.
person that's your partner, that has been cruel. So, okay.
Yeah.
So the next question, Dr. Rob, can you see this one in the answered? I'm not sure. Can you see anything yet?
Keep
No.
talking and I'll
Okay.
know.
Do you think doing 12-step work for sex addiction along with 12-step work for co-occurring addictions such as alcoholism is wise? Should the added focus on doing the work in one area, building muscle and addressing that addiction, and then wait for more stability to engage in recovery work in the other addiction?
Well, I can I'm actually going to ask Tammy to speak to this, but I do want to say one thing, which is you can't work on a behavior like gambling, like spending, like sexing if you're loaded, because you need to have impulse control. You need to have self-reflection. You need to be able to, when you're drinking, all bets are off. It's like, oh, I'll do this and who will care? And, I'll just drive home when you've had, we don't think clearly. So I don't know the degree to which these are co-occurring, but I do know that without drug and alcohol sobriety, there's nothing to work on. So certainly this person needs to address the drugs and alcohol. But I want Tammy to speak to the co-occurring because I know that you've had some issues yourself with the drugs and alcohol. So maybe you could speak to that.
And co-occurring. And so yeah. So here's the deal. I'm with Dr. Rob. If you don't stop the chemicals, you have no thought process. But the beauty of the 12-step program is like the steps are basically the same. It's just so step one is my life is unmanageable. And step 4 and 5 are taking a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. And even in the AA big book, the biggest piece of that talks about sex. There's a huge section on sex, which always strikes me as funny when people have been sober in AA for a long time and then they're still acting out sexually. So but to compartmentalize it, my fear is if somebody completely compartmentalizes it and goes like, well, I'll get sober in AA and then eventually I'll go work on everything else, is they're still going to hang on to porn, they're going to still hang on to sex addiction, and you don't really get sobriety in AA or any other form because you're still hanging on to those things that will, keep that dopamine going, will keep you disconnected, that will keep you numbed out. So I think it's really important to be looking holistically across, the different things. If it's sex addiction and AA, but that's 2 meetings, and if you're doing 90 meetings in 90 days, you can make that happen. But the 4th step should include all of those problematic behaviors. So, and the other thing is there's plenty of sponsors that have that have multiple things. I hardly know anybody that has just a problem,
Right.
like honestly, like that just doesn't really happen. If we're compulsive, we're really compulsive and we'll find something. But addressing all of those things now, like chocolate addiction, okay, you can skip that one for a little bit, but if it's a massive eating disorder, you'd have to look at that as well. So you can't just go, well, I'm going to work on this one. That's kind of harm reduction. Like, I'm going to work on this one, but I'm going to keep all these other things. People, Dr. David Fawcett, who works with us, but also does webinars on this platform as well. And he talks about smoking and vaping and how monumentally problematic those are, even for sex addicts. It isn't just about chemicals. It's about you are more likely to relapse if you're smoking or vaping. So we have to be intentional about about our work and finding the right balance between the different programs. But at the end of the day, the fourth step, if it's comprehensive, it's going to cover everything. So,
I want to add one thing to the chat, which is Dr. Fawcett just came out of a book, just wrote a book that we supported and helped with a little bit, and it's called Sex Under the Influence. Thank you, Tammy.
and
I'm
he
going to
did a
put it
webinar. We already have
about
a
this.
webinar on it on our platform. So yes.
I threw it in the chat. And I said also, and I really mean this, there are few, if any, programs anywhere that treat co-occurring disorders that involve sex. And it may well be one of the things I do is consultations, and I meet with couples for a couple of hours or longer online. And my job is to evaluate and give direction. And this might be the kind of situation where the two of you want to get on a consultation and say, here's what's going on. How do you think we can make progress? Or how are we doing? Or which one should we choose? By the way, I wanted to say to all the spouses, and I really, really mean this, that if your partner who's an addict has not gotten STD tested, if you have not gotten STD tested, and I know that nobody wants to go to their doctor and say, my spouse is cheating and I need to get tested. There are public clinics, but we don't think about what we have and how we might pass it on. And especially when you've got something like HPV, men may have very few symptoms, and women can get cervical cancer. I ask you to protect yourself and your children. Until that happens, if you're gonna have sex with us, make sure there's a condom, or make sure you're protecting your safety. And who wants to think about that? But that is a reality that is actually helpful for you to look at in terms of really getting what this is about and your own safety. What else we got,
So
Tammy?
the last question, thanks for your sometimes brutal, honest feedback for addicts. We are so selfish. How can we addicts take the first step to getting out of our narcissism and into seeing the impacts of our selfish choices? I used to lie so much to myself that I believed it. Can you speak to we addicts directly on how to get our heads out of our butts faster so we don't continue to harm it's women, it's other people too, so through
Women,
self
yeah.
lies. It seems like we are so black and white. Advice to us about selfishness beyond just stop is helpful.
Well, one of the greatest things that all addicts lack is empathy, because and that means to experience the feelings, to be able to think about what someone else's experience is. So without empathy, I can hurt you and not think twice about it. With empathy, I can say, oh, that would really hurt them. I'm not going to do that. So narcissists and addicts in particular lack empathy. This is why I wrote a book called Out of the Doghouse. This is why we teach a course. I I absolutely believe that, and there's a Christian version of that too,
Mm-hmm.
because we thought the Christian community should have that. But I do not believe that any man natively understands how to heal betrayal when they betrayed a woman. And any man, we think it's flowers and candy and you're going to get over it. And it's been 3 months. And I agree. I appreciate your self-reflection. I appreciate that you want to be a better person. I do think when you've been working on this for a while, that you get to reflect on other parts of it. And by the way, I don't hear if you're sober or how you were doing in recovery or what you're doing to take care of yourself. So I want to make sure that your focus is not simply how do I look better and be kinder to my spouse, but is also what am I learning in the process of healing and what am I doing for myself? But the truth is that it isn't black and white. It's a process, and it's a process that we need to learn about and experience. And we did an Out of the Doghouse work group. We have an Out of the Doghouse support group. We very much believe, all of us at Seeking Integrity, that gaining empathy is a process that you have to actually learn. And that's why I wrote the book and the work. We try, especially men, we want to, but we don't know how. And we don't understand how long it's going to take you to heal or the depth of your pain. And that's why Out of the Doghouse exists. Did you want to add to that, Tammy?
I do. Like this is when the inner child work is good. Like when you've got a solid foundation and you want to learn. but you know, one of the things that the guys that come to our residential treatment program learn is empathy for each other. And it's easier to practice it when you're in a group of other people like that. That's why we go to 12 step. That's why we do the drop in groups, because those are safer people than our significant person in our lives who is like, oh, there's, you know, some fear and scare and vulnerability, you know, to do that. But yeah, we can learn. So there's one more question. People say, can someone learn empathy? Yes. Yes, we can learn that. We, in our active addiction, we are self-centered, self-focused,
Mhm.
lying to
Not
ourselves, just like
me.
this person, lying to ourselves and everyone else. And it's terrifying as we, you know, come out of that. And, you know, I often share with partners because I want him to have empathy. And I'm like, you have to be exact with what you are saying. What does empathy look like so that he can learn to do those things? Like, and it's going to feel
Right.
really odd, but you know, it's like, you know, like, you know, I want him to have whatever characteristic, and you're going like, you have to be really clear, spell it out, you know, what that looks like. And, you know, how can he show you that trust is another one. I want him to be trustworthy. What does that mean to you? What are you going to see in actions so that, you know, there's an opportunity to go, oh, if I'm trustworthy, it's going to look like this. So yeah, there's hope, you know, for those of us that are on this journey. If we keep doing what we need to do, we make progress. But those are, you know, empathy and trustworthiness. Those are deeper skills and will take more
They're late
time.
stage.
Yes, yeah, that
Hmm.
is not the first, you know, few months or even the first year. That's the 18 months, 2 years. You know, we talk about the recovery journey where you're really integrating 12 steps and, you know, applying things to your whole life. That's 2 to 5 years. And I don't want you to be hopeless. I want you to be hopeful that it, you know, if the person's been acting out, dissociating, let's say, since before age 10, and say they're in their 40s, that's decades. But, you know, in a couple of years, you will see progress throughout the couple of years, but they can be a different person. So, kind of going back to what that first question that you had, kind of the, you
Right.
know, you know, when it's like it's been 2 months and everything's great, you know, it like that feels like, too hopeful, you know, so cautiously optimistic is good, and watch for things, you know, the actions, you know, to continue. I know, as you do, lots of people who, you know, I got this and stopped after, you know, 6 months or a year or whatever, and, you know, and then they're, you know, acting out again and going, what happened? And you're going like, well, you quit doing the work. So it's a journey, but it's worth
I
it.
want to add to a couple of things about empathy. Empathy, again, I'm going to say again, is not, I'm such a terrible person. I can't believe I did these things. What's wrong with me? I ruined other people's. Empathy is thinking about you. I can't imagine what you've been through. I don't have any idea how much this has hurt you. Um, I can see you getting angry or upset, and I think, of course, you're completely overwhelmed. So it is really reaching in and not defending yourself as an addict, but saying, I can see what you're going through. I did want to say one more thing about empathy in my experience. When you natively grow up with it, and it has been you've been engaged at a young age with empathy, which is not what enmeshed parents do. It may never be native to immediately be empathic, or to, we may never automatically think, oh, I wonder what they're feeling. But what I can do is look at your face, look how you responded to me, listen to what I said, and come back and say, I don't think that was what I meant, and I didn't mean to hurt you. And empathy may not be automatic, but one of the things about the 12 steps is we learn that we think about what's gone on, and we can go back and say, and own it, and own it. And so is empathy automatically going to happen? Not necessarily. Is empathy going to be a part of what we learn? We have to learn about how to practice and practice. Absolutely. Um, Tammy, I'm going to go feed my dog unless you think that is not a good
No,
idea.
that's a great idea. Thanks, everyone. Aaron will be here next week. Dr. Rob will be back in 2 weeks. So see
Thank you,
everybody.
Tammy. Bye for
Bye.
now.